The story itself might seem incredibly dull. I'll just read you one of the titles, one of many stories that have been published today. This one coming from Como. Inslee imposes government spending freeze amid projected revenue shortfall. Now that sounds like right, if you have sleep apnea.
I was going to say, is that how you sleep?
Well, if you have sleep apnea, sometimes you do that, and then you do.
Aren't you supposed to have like the little device attached to you, though?
I'm not with that on my face and nose right now. I'm just saying. The title of it itself seems really, really boring. And I've seen a lot of really, really boring titles, which kind of betrays what the story truly is about. So here's the context. This announcement from Jay Inslee about a spending freeze is happening because there's now a $400 million projected revenue shortfall through 2029. This is a spending freeze for government agencies, and maybe some of you remember comments that were made almost exactly a year ago by the governor, who said we were actually going in the right direction when it came to spending.
Generally following the prioritization of the state of Washington, which was right to begin with. And if you're right to begin with, you don't change it.
If you're right to begin with, you don't change it, meaning the direction in how you're spending other people's money.
If you're right to begin with, you don't change it. Just like your claim in Mount Rainier. You take another step in the same direction.
Oh, okay. Now I could fully understand what it was he was saying because of that. I guess that was a simile.
Or is it a metaphor?
It's a simile because he said like.
I guess.
A simile is a simile when you say like
or as. Yeah. Okay.
So that was a simile. It was a metaphorical simile. But you're burying the issue. I now understand what it is I was like, oh, I didn't understand what he was saying until he made a Mount Rainier hiking reference. Now I totally get it. Now, understand, finding ourselves now in a $400 million shortfall a year after we were told we were on the right path indicates one of two things, perhaps both. But number one, he was lying when he said that we were on the right path, right? That is an obvious possibility. Or number two, we just spent a ton of money in this last year that put us into this level of financial insecurity. I suppose there's also a third option of the forecasters just not being very good at their job or missing something, making some mistake. Okay. But dare I say, this is happening in the context of having record high revenues, right? Record high revenues. And yet somehow they are unable to spend within their means, our means. And dare I say, this is the result of having a spend-happy one-party rule legislature, one-party rule in Olympia. They end up going overboard with their spending habits. Democrats love to spend money, and there's no doubt that Republicans do as well. Some do. But one side is traditionally a little bit more responsible when it comes to spending other people's money. Now, what the freeze actually means is that you're not going to be able, at the government agency level, hire non-essential employees, which doesn't feel great if you're told you're a non-essential employee. This will impact service contracts. None of those can continue. Purchasing, no more new purchases, no more new travel. Now, they don't tell us how much money they expect to save, mostly because all of this is a ploy. Did you know that this was all a ploy?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you think they're going to save a ton of money with this hiring freeze in December?
Probably not, no.
Unlikely. Probably not doing a whole bunch of hiring right now. Now, if they did this over the course of several years, sure. $400 million? No, not even close. So why might not they tell us how much money they expect to save?
Because it's not very much money.
What else? What do they plan to do?
Raise taxes?
Yes, here's what they're going to do. Here's the ploy. This is Jason Tells the Future on December 3rd at 8 minutes after the hour. They are going to come out and say, and by they, I mean Democrats in general. It's not going to be Jay Inslee. It'll probably be Bob Ferguson or someone in the state legislature. They're going to come out and say, look, we did everything that we could. We even froze hiring and travel and what. We can't get around this crisis. We have a constitutional obligation to balance the budget every 4 years. We are now in a pickle, but we've done everything we can. And unfortunately, all we're going to be left with is we're going to have to raise taxes. Now, maybe they try to hide what it is they're doing by reintroducing the idea of a wealth tax, which is on their docket for this upcoming legislative session. And that, of course, will be their way of saying, oh, don't worry, it doesn't impact you. It just impacts the uber wealthy because it's time that they, quote unquote, paid their fair share. But that won't be the only tax. You're going to see an attempt to raise property taxes. You've already got city leaders all across the state asking for legislation that allows them to jack up the tax rates on property instead of keeping it at the bar. I think it was 1% at a time they want to bring that up even higher. They are setting the stage right now for an increase in taxes that will hit every single person who's listening right now, assuming you live here. That is the reality. And no one sees it coming because all of these headlines are very boring and all of the details are just taken from a press release and no one is diving any deeper into it in Seattle media except for who?
Detective Rantz.
Yeah. That's who. So just note that that's going to happen. Let's not act surprised when it does, but let's just keep this, top of mind. Because once we get into the new legislative session, which, how many days away from it? We're getting pretty close. Can't we still say days now?
I think so.
It's December 3rd. I'm going to go with days. I mean, more accurate as weeks, but I'm going to go with days because it sounds more urgent and imminent. But we are coming close on it. Okay, a month and a half, 2 months, but still. So keep this in mind because you're going to have to start speaking up when it gets introduced. You're going to get activated, as we say. And activation is different for everybody. Some of you believe that means you show up to meetings. If you can, awesome. You testify. Awesome. For others, it's just sending out some tweets or emails or texts, telling people about what's going on and starting to generate anger over this. Otherwise, they're going to push this right through. They might push it right through regardless of the anger because they feel emboldened to continue to go down this path because of how much power they have in Olympia. And they will do it to our detriment.